The story begins with a raggedy demon king preparing his most powerful spell to finish off the protagonist. Throwing a creepy look at Leon Klin, the monster laughed and shouted that this was the end. Immediately after saying those words, it released a huge fireball straight at the guy standing there. However, the hero was not going to give up so easily. Casting a frost spell, Leon Klein sent it back at his opponent's attack. He is now mankind's only hope, and as such, it is his duty to free the world from the tyranny of the Demon King, Belfar. Continuing to block the enemy's attack, Leon found a vulnerable spot to counterattack. Taking advantage of the Demon King's blind spot, the guy materialized a wall of sharp ice peaks with his foot, right below the fireball. The Demon King Belfar, focused on attacking, didn't follow the boy's movements and paid for it. In such an important battle, he neglected to protect himself, and so he was pierced by dozens of frosty spades. Disappearing from the world of the living, Belfar took one last look at his assassin. "Leon Klein, don't even dare think that it's over!" the Demon King shouted in rage, after which he completely dissolved. For a while longer, the protagonist couldn't believe that he had actually managed to do it. Breathing out a sigh of relief, he was sure the threat had finally passed. The great wizard Leon defeated the Demon King Belfar, causing peace to return to the world. At least that's what people thought. A few days later, the 10-year orphanage where the world hero Leon was born and raised. The carriage had already been provided, and the lad was ready to leave for the royal castle. While Leon was chatting with the coachman, a child's voice calling his name was heard nearby. A little girl with a teddy bear in her hands ran up to her brother and asked where he was going. Kneeling down in front of her, the boy explained that he was urgently called away on business, after which he asked his little sister to be a good child and wait for him. Patting the girl on the head, Leon promised to teach her magic again when he returned. In just a few hours, the protagonist entered the throne room of the royal palace. There he was welcomed with open arms by the king himself and Prince Shark. Kneeling down in front of them, the guy greeted his highness as well, and remarked that it's been a while since the last time they met. "Long time no see." A familiar female voice was unexpectedly heard, surprising Leon. Turning his head, the boy saw Princess Sarah in front of him. The boy turned his head and saw Princess Sarah standing in front of him. While the guy kissed her hand, the king explained that he had summoned Princess Sarah from a neighboring country specifically for this meeting. To be honest, as soon as the king told her that the hero Leon was coming to the castle, she immediately said she would arrive as soon as possible. "By the way, your majesty, why did you summon me today?" the protagonist inquired. After thinking about it, the king said that according to Prince Shark, there is still a cave nearby where monsters appear. Puzzled by this information, Leon exclaimed that he had already defeated the Demon King. "Why haven't the monsters disappeared yet?" In response, His Highness explained that this was why he wanted to have Leon investigate the matter. He had also heard of cases where those who entered the cave did not return. Then, clapping his hands, the king pointed out that Leon Klin was not like the others, and if he even went alone, it was unlikely that anything would happen to him. After all, he was able to defeat the Demon King, so there was nothing to worry about. Of course, the protagonist could not disagree with His Highness. He is obliged to eliminate the factors that threaten the people's peace. He has an obligation to do so, especially for the future of these children from the orphanage. Bowing his head before the king, the boy said that he understood everything. He respectfully accepted the ruler's request to investigate the case of the monsters in the cave. In return, His Majesty promised the boy, after the investigation was over, to think about the marriage to Princess Sarah they had recently talked about. Looking at the embarrassed girl beside him, Leon only laughed awkwardly. The king still hadn't changed a bit. Marrying a princess is something unfathomable to a man like Leon. And by the looks of it, now in the throne room among those four people was one who clearly did not approve of the head of state's decisions. With a wave of his hand, the king asked the hero to stay in the castle for the night, adding that Shark knew where the right cave was and he would take him there tomorrow morning. The next day, while Leon was putting all the necessary things into the wagon, the prince's voice was heard nearby. As he and his knights approached the hero, Shark apologized to him for keeping him waiting. Then, holding out his hand to the guy, Shark said with a smile on his face that he would enjoy working with him on this investigation. Leon shook the prince's hand and reciprocated. Soon the two men on the wagons reached the cave. Shark pointed his finger at a rift in the rock and told Sir Leon that the monsters must be inside. Staring tensely into the darkness, the protagonist suggested that his traveling companion proceed with caution. Inside, the cave looked quite unusual. There were huge roots growing everywhere, forming a whole system of tunnels. As Leon looked around, he felt something strange. Is the aura emanating from this place the reason why people who enter this cave disappear? Tensely looking at the roots, the boy wanted to ask Prince Shark to be careful. Suddenly, the man who approached him from behind sneakily pierced the boy's chest through and through with his sword. The wound was not critical, but for some reason Leon fell to his knees, unable to move. He realized at once that the blade had been poisoned. Turning around in horror at Shark coldly wiping the blood from his sword, the wounded lad asked why he had done it. With a scornful glance at the boy, the prince explained that this was the place of his execution. Leon had gotten in his way by being too close to Queen Sarah when Shark himself should have been in his place. Now the prince plans to make the hero disappear and stage it as an accident. Enraged, Leon shouted that this was nonsense and he wasn't interested in political power. He was just doing the best he could for those children. Such a response only elicited a laugh from the prince. Covering his face with his hand, Shark laughed so loudly that his voice echoed throughout the cave. Those children who were so important to you are no longer here. The prince spoke ominously, throwing something in the hero's face. That's when Leon saw in front of him the torn-off piece of a teddy bear's head that his little sister was holding. While the guy couldn't figure out what was going on, Shark explained that last night he had burned down the orphanage with everyone in it. Stepping on the severed head of the teddy bear, the prince added that it would only add to the problems if anyone were to worry about their hero going missing. The prince looked at his victim with a merciless smile on his face and remarked that they could now happily go to heaven together. That's a good thing, isn't it? When the realization of what had happened came to him, rage and fear mingled in Leon Klin's eyes. But no sooner had the boy cried out than the prince who had come close to him kicked him in the chest. Still reeling from the paralyzing poison, the boy flew helplessly down into the abyss. "Thank you for your hard work, Mr. Hero of Justice," Shark said with a mocking grin, glaring at him. Falling into the endless abyss, the enraged Leon couldn't utter a single word. In the end, all he had to do was accept his imminent death. Very soon the lad reached the very bottom of the cave, after which there was a sepulchral silence. No one knows how much time has passed since he fell. But suddenly, a drop falling on the boy's face woke him up. Abruptly opening his eyes, Leon saw that he was still in that cave. Sitting in the water, the protagonist moved his arm and made sure he survived for some reason. At the same moment, memories of how meanly he had been given to him by Prince Shark came flooding into his head. After realizing that all the words this scumbag had said were indeed true, Leon slammed his fists on the ground in despair and screamed that he would never forgive this bastard. Climbing out of the lake, the guy decided that first he had to find a way to get out of here. The place turned out to be pretty huge, and so the boy had no idea where he should even go. His musings were interrupted by a mysterious violet light that suddenly appeared in front of him. Right in front of the hero appeared surrounded by an ominous aura monster, resembling the skeleton of a huge dog. Although it was obviously a monster, it was unlike any Leon had had to fight before. As luck would have it, by scanning a fireball directly into his opponent, the guy finished him off very quickly. Trying to figure out what this beast was in the first place, the boy walked over to the charred bones. At the same moment, a strange system window appeared in front of his face, reporting to him that the secret infinite passage strategy quest had been passed by 1/1,000,000th. Frowning in bewilderment, Leon tried to press the mysterious thing in front of him. He was prevented from doing so by a monster that suddenly appeared behind him just like the last time. Not wanting to be too distracted by this weakling, the protagonist literally vaporized him with a single fireball. When he shifted his gaze back to the system window, he noticed that the one above the fraction had changed to a 2. This made the guy realize that the number was increasing as he defeated the monsters. Whatever it was, right now it was more important for the boy to find a way out of here first. Walking leisurely through the cave, Leon came across a similar water source that he had fallen into. Only unlike his lake, this one held many skeletons in adventurer armor. Most likely these are the very people who the king said disappeared after entering this cave. Getting down on one knee in front of the dead, the pissed-off protagonist realized that he couldn't afford to just die here. Since that day, Leon Klin has been through many explorations and battles many times. It's been a whole year and he still hasn't found his way out of this place. There was only one thing keeping the guy from going crazy during all these battles. That thing must have been the spirit of revenge he harbored against Shark. Much more time had passed since then, and for every milestone he passed for destroying monsters, he learned a new magic. For 100,000 targets destroyed, Leon received the attribute of dark magic. At first, he didn't want to use this ability, as he had never heard of it, and therefore didn't know its consequences. But then the boy realized that this was the power he needed to get revenge on Shark. Finally, 10 years have passed since he entered this cave. Leon Klein took all the possible rewards for destroying monsters and finally completed the secret quest. In those 10 years, he had finished off 1 million enemies and managed to stay alive. After completing the quest, the protagonist began to dream of an unknown but rather pleasant voice. He asked the boy to defeat someone. As soon as the voice made such a demand, sunlight suddenly appeared in front of Leon. Covering his face with his hand, the lad saw a huge, boiled-away golden gate. He had no choice but to walk through those doors and find out what fate had prepared for him next. Will he be able to return to the surface? And if so, what happened in the world while he was gone? Thinking about all of this, a waking Leon felt himself lying face down in the water. Opening his eyes, the boy stood up a little. The next instant, in the reflection of the water, he saw the face of a man unknown to him in front of him. The bewildered boy rose abruptly to his feet and turned around to try to figure out where he was even. What he saw was beyond explanation. The buildings around him didn't resemble anything that could exist in his world. Where the hell did I end up? Was all that was on Leon's mind at the moment. While the guy was trying to figure out where he could have been thrown, a voice was heard nearby, surprised that he was still conscious. Walking up to the boy and addressing him by the name Kurobane, the dude with the red hair remarked that he was pretty good as a punching bag. Leon looked at the strangers in confusion and wondered if they were addressing him. Who were they, anyway? Clearly annoyed, the bulky man ordered the boy to shut up and stop saying such strange things. As he got closer, he grabbed the guy sitting in the fountain firmly by the head. Starting to drown the kid in water, the red-haired stranger advised him to finally wake up since he was still half asleep. Still not understanding what these bastards wanted from him, Leon decided to stand up for himself. Spreading his arms out to the sides, he activated the water magic attribute and used the Flood Scourge spell. In the same second, huge water pillars rose from the fountain, throwing the insolent, bulky man a few meters aside. Falling to the ground, the red-haired stranger's ass rolled on the ground. The thug looked up and saw Kurobane standing confidently, who just a short time ago they had no trouble writhing in a mob. So what had just happened? Did he really just do that? While his cronies were asking him if he was okay, Makabe-san, lying on the ground, looked into his errand boy's eyes and couldn't believe that it was really his doing. Tisking unhappily, the thug decided not to mess with this dude and told his fellows it was time for them to get the hell out. Leon could only stare in bewilderment at the fleeing strangers, trying to figure out what had just happened. You unleashed so much power despite your magic being suppressed? A mysterious voice asked wistfully, as if coming from the protagonist's head. As he flew closer to the boy, the violet firelight picked up on the fact that he couldn't expect anything else from Leon-sama. Realizing that the guy would have quite a few questions for him, the flame flew up sharply and suggested we talk somewhere else. Trying to get the strange flying thing to stop, Leon continued to follow it. Finally stopping, the firebrand took stock of the fact that now that they had come all the way here, everything should be fine. After these words, the flying object lit up with such a bright light that the protagonist had to cover his face with his hands to avoid being blinded. When the light diminished a bit, the guy removed his hands and saw a small blue-haired lowly girl dressed as a sorceress. Suddenly, rushing into the boy's arms, the overjoyed girl exclaimed that she was honored to meet Leon-sama. Quickly grabbing the lolly by the shoulders, the protagonist unhooked her from herself and asked her who she was, and then asked if she knew, to tell him what was going on here. The girl apologized and introduced herself as Luna, a messenger of the goddess. The puzzled boy decided to clarify which envoy he was talking about. Luna, in turn, explained that she had simply simplified her job title. More specifically, she's a conduit for the dead. The messenger goddess explained that Leon had actually passed away back when he was pushed into the cliff in that cave. He was now in a world different from the one he was originally in. He had possessed the body of a boy from that world through the power of the goddess. After learning so much new information, it took Leon a while to accept what had happened and calm down. Luna tried to apologize to the boy for dumping it all on him so immediately, agreeing that it was impossible not to be confused in such a situation. The boy in turn only grinned and said he was fine. He had it all sorted out in his head. Looking at the goddess's messenger, the protagonist wondered why her mentor had brought him to this world. The blue-haired lowly was about to reply when suddenly a powerful green glow formed nearby. In front of Leon and Luna, a giant green gate appeared, similar in size to the one through which the guy had exited the dungeon last time. As she held out her hand to the boy, the messenger of the goddess noticed that the door had appeared just in time. It would help her answer his question. Staring spellbound at the green gate, Leon couldn't even imagine what would await him next. As he passed through the doors, he saw something he hadn't seen in over a decade. He saw the creature he had fought even before he became a world hero in his world. There was no doubt that the monster running towards him had fought under the Demon King Belfar in the past. It turned out to be Granzoris, an insurmountable enemy with a strong magical barrier. Back then, 10 years ago, it took Leon Klin more than 3 days to defeat this beast in his original world. Now he has no choice but to fight it once more. But before Sir Leon entered the battle, Luna advised him to use his new magic and promised that victory would then come easy for him. Quickly guessing what she was talking about, the guy activated an attribute of dark magic. At the same time, Granzoris had already run up to him and was ready to grab the boy with his powerful jaw. As soon as Leon let the dark mana flow through his veins, an incredibly eerie aura formed around him. Reaching out to the monster running at him, the protagonist used the Blessing's stripping skill. In the same second, the Granzor's nearly invincible magical barrier shattered into small pieces. The barrier completely disappeared in a matter of moments. Leon had never dreamed of such a weapon in the past. Losing its impenetrable defense, the monster turned around as quickly as possible and fled. However, taking away blessings isn't the only thing the attribute of dark magic can do. In one easy motion, Leon unleashed a spell of deadly claws, piercing his opponent's neck. The Granzoris that had died helplessly fell at the guy's feet. This fight did not last even 30 seconds. The creature, barely less powerful than the Demon King, lost very quickly. With a joyful exclamation, Luna congratulated Leon-sama on her victory. Shocked, looking at his hand shrouded in dark energy, the protagonist couldn't believe that he possessed such overwhelming power. While the messenger of the goddess was celebrating the victory of her idol, Leon just stood there for a while, looking at the corpse of the Granzoris. Soon the guy spotted a gleeful lowly girl and decided to ask her something. "Why the hell didn't you tell me about this power right away?" muttered the boy, looking at the goddess's messenger with disdain. Luna, for her part, apologized and remarked that it was easier to see in practice how much of a difference it was from the power he'd used before. Sighing heavily, Leon said that he understood the situation. If he was moved here, it means that the Demon King Belfar will come to this world as well. Praising the boy's ingenuity, Luna explained that the gate the two of them had recently passed through had been formed due to the Demon King's effect. If the guy decides to leave the gate, however, the world he's in now may find himself destroyed by these monsters. Saying that he understood that, the protagonist implied that in that case it was no surprise that the goddess had appointed a guide for him and brought him to this world. Still, Leon wondered if it was because of Belfar that he had been called here. Looking up, the boy saw a flag with a rather familiar emblem developing nearby. It was an emblem he had seen in his original world. A tattoo with the exact same design was on the back of Shark's palm. Couldn't that mean that this scum had moved to this world as well? At the thought of it, Leon was gripped by an uncontrollable anger. Luna really wanted to comfort the guy, but suddenly she saw something that interfered with her future plans. After apologizing to Leon-sama, the goddess messenger quickly disappeared so as not to accidentally cause trouble for him. "Please excuse me." The voice of an unfamiliar woman approached the boy from behind. When the girl turned to him, Leon turned to her perplexed. As she came closer, the stranger greeted the guy and asked for a moment. The girl asked the boy if there was a gate open nearby. Luna, as if lodged in Leon's mind, picked up on the smell of trouble, and so advised him to pretend he didn't know what it was about. The boy replied to the stranger that he had seen nothing of the sort. The girl, in her turn, thinking about it, said that it was strange, because she could swear that she had felt the presence of the gate. Then, looking closely at the boy's face, she remembered him. The lady inquired if he was the same student who had previously been associated with those delinquents. Leon tried to reply something, but the stranger only bowed and apologized for it. She tried to stop them, but she was too late to notice, and so she couldn't do anything to help. Smiling, the boy said that it wasn't really something she should apologize for. Leon doesn't know who this girl is, but she immediately struck him as honest and pretty straightforward. Once again, making sure this guy didn't see any gates here, the girl said goodbye to him and told him she had to get back to her dorm. After waiting for the stranger to leave, Luna reappeared and remarked that this lady was incredible, as she could smell the presence of the gate. Moreover, Leon-sama had now discovered this girl's plot flag, and their fates would undoubtedly cross again soon. While the enchanted messenger of the goddess was saying this, the main character was looking at her perplexed and didn't understand what she was even talking about. A while later, student dorms. As Leon approached the door to his room, he saw a pile of insult sheets pasted on it. While the boy, sighing heavily, stared at all this art, with a cheeky grin the classmates watching him began to mock him. Leon realized at once what kind of situation he was in. As he gripped the doorknob, he thought that the girl they had met the other day must have been an exception. When they were alone in the room, Luna took on the appearance of a lowly and indignantly yelled out what was wrong with these dudes. Why do they write such vulgar things? As Leon wandered around his new room, he noticed that it appeared that Kuroban Ren, whose body he had taken over, was having a rather rough time. Taking a seat on the bed, the boy added as he had another question. What the hell is wrong with school in this world? Why is her crest exactly the same as the symbol on one of Shark's palms? Had the prince also traveled to this world with the Demon King? Unfortunately, Luna could not answer these questions. In fact, she doesn't know much about this world. She just pops into this world occasionally to guide Leon Sama. She hasn't seen the prince here yet. Thanking the messenger of the goddess, the guy said that he really wanted to get to the bottom of all this. But for now, he would first have to find out how the academy worked. Even if he had to put Shark's case on hold for a while, he'd never forget what he'd done. Soon the next day came. First of all, Leon decided to change his image a bit by getting a new hairstyle. Watching the boy, Luna continued to encourage him. She really liked his new look, which made him look pretty cool. As he put on his jacket, Leon took note that for now, he should move like the original, just like Kuroban Ren. He should also remember to copy his manner of speech. Taking his bag, the boy left the dormitory and headed for the academy. Today, he must do everything possible to learn more about this world. There are only a few things Leon knows about this world. A few years ago, mysterious spaces called gates began to appear in the world. And at the same time, there were people who could use magic. Many dangerous monsters appeared from the gate. The people who kill these monsters extract valuable resources from within. The number of seekers, people seeking such work, is only growing every day. It is said that it is the sacred Imperial Academy that trains such seekers. While pondering all of this, Leon Klin heard sounds outside that interested him. The boy looked out the window and saw the student council president of this academy, Izumiya Makoto, there. Just by looking at the way she uses spells, you can tell that she's pretty good at magic. When the bell rang for recess, Leon left the classroom and wanted to head to the library to get more information. However, blocking his path was a red-haired man he already knew. Staring at his errand boy with a smile, Makabe reminded him that it was time for small errands. The thug grabbed Kurobane-kun by the shoulder and said that he really wanted to eat some bread today. Looking nonchalantly into Makabe's face, Leon suggested that in that case, he should go to the dining hall and get something to eat. The thug clearly hadn't expected such a boorish response, and so it made him very angry. Calling the boy a bastard, Makabe shouted why all of a sudden he was acting so arrogant since yesterday. Continuing to hold the errand boy firmly by the shoulder, the bulky man took his right hand aside and began to prepare a spell, promising to give him a snack right away. Izumiya Mikoto, who had noticed the altercation, tried to stop the bullies, reminding them that the use of magic was forbidden on school grounds. However, that didn't stop Makabe, and he was ready to finish off the insolent kid with a stone hammer. "Good griff," Leon muttered, looking at the bulky man with shame. In the next instant, he activated the dark magic attribute. Initiating a crack in space, the guy began to absorb the enemy's magic without a trace. This dark energy spell is named Grim Devourer. The stone hammer that Makabe had created had completely gone into oblivion in the blink of an eye. Closing the spatial crack with a wave of his hand, Leon finally neutralized the bully's attack. Gromila and the student council president stood staring shocked at the boy for a while longer. After apologizing to his classmates, Leon said he had to go. Still not believing her eyes, Izumiya continued to stand still and stare at the guy. After school, Leon received a letter from Makabe. The bully, seemingly seeking revenge, had summoned the boy to the practice field after school. Also noticing the letter, Luna asked the guy why he wouldn't just ignore it. Leon, on the other hand, was adamant. He wanted to answer this challenge. After all, it would do him good to reduce the number of obstacles in his way. Changing her opinion very quickly, Luna too lit up with the idea of beating the crap out of this insolent man. But, with an extra deft glance at her, Leon went to the door and asked her to remain hidden. Late afternoon, outdoor training ground. In fact, Makabe hadn't expected that scum of Kuroban Ren to actually come here. The first question the thug asked the guy was about what the hell happened this afternoon. Without a clear answer from the boy, the bully offered Kurobane a one-on-one fight. Makabe thought the little shit should be taught a lesson if he was going to behave like that. After agreeing to accept the fight, Leon added a condition that if he won, the bulky man would never bother him again. Suddenly, grabbing his face, Makabe yelled that he didn't understand what had happened to this kid. Until yesterday, he would have started shaking like hell if the bully had pushed him a little. Telling the bulky man to stop jabbering, Leon motioned for him to start already. Scowling angrily, Makabe agreed to start and immediately ordered his cronies to get the jerk. The two bullies, preparing attack spells, pounced on the boy from both sides. They had already run up almost close, but Kurobane kept standing there doing nothing. Laughing evilly, Makabe shouted that he was lying when he said the fight would be one-on-one. Well, I knew you would, Leon spoke calmly. After saying that, he spread his arms to either side and held out his fingers in the direction of the approaching opponents. In the next moment, he activated the dark magic attribute spell, the Mirror of Negation. The attack magic that had been summoned to harm the boy reflected straight back at the bullies who had created it. With literally a couple swings of their hands, the two were completely incapacitated. All Maccabi had to do in this situation was to stand there with his mouth hanging open and await his fate. Apologizing to the bulky man, Leon said he would never allow himself to succumb to a sneak attack again. And more importantly, he has no plans to forgive anyone who tries to do so. After explaining all of this to his dim-witted opponent, Leon began to concentrate the dark energy in his hand and slowly walk towards him. A stunned Maccabi still couldn't understand what was going on. Magic can be divided into 4 categories: wind, water, fire, and earth. What kind of magic is this guy using then? Shuddering with fear, the bulky man decided to ask Kurobane how someone as useless as him could use such magic. Useless, huh? Those ghastly words coming out of his errand boy's mouth shackled Maccabi. The angry Leon, looking mercilessly at the bully, muttered that he couldn't believe that this dude even dared to look down at someone in a situation like this. Finally desperate, Maccabi stretched out his arm and tried to launch a fireball at the distraught boy. However, he didn't even notice Kurobane Ren walking up to him. His movements were simply not visible to the human eye. Once next to his opponent, Leon placed his hand on his neck and affected his body with dark magic. Losing consciousness, Maccabi didn't want to accept what had just happened. How could he lose to someone like that little shit? Soon the bulky man was finally knocked out, and Leon was finally able to quiet his creepy energy. Showing herself in front of the boy, Luna had noticed that the ability to rob another by depriving them of their mana with an attribute of dark magic was a pretty useful thing. Agreeing with her, Leon mused that, having felt something like that, this dude was unlikely to ever bother him again. In any case, he was glad it was over without any repercussions. As soon as the guy said this, there was a loud rumbling sound coming from wherever you were from under the ground. Then a siren howled, alerting all the students of the academy to evacuate. Sitting at the microphone, the head of the student council announced that a gate had appeared near the academy's training area. The threat level for the gate has been rated as a red category, which is the highest level of danger. Upon hearing the siren, students ran out of classrooms and dormitories. Izumiya Makoto, heading down the hallway, informed everyone that students should avoid fighting monsters while evacuating to the city. The girl herself had to promptly begin the process of sealing the gate. However, one of the teachers stopped the student council president and reported to her that the academy principal had ordered that no one should deal with the red category. If students fail the raid because of their recklessness, the academy will be held accountable for their actions. Then, unwilling to listen to him, the girl reminded him that in the past, when the red category gate appeared, the residents of the neighboring houses had suffered great damage. The reason why students attend this academy is to learn how to deal with these situations. That's why Izumiya can't do anything other than sealing this gate himself. Immediately with the appearance of the gate, monsters began to come out. Those who were in the vicinity at the time were the most unlucky. One of the students, realizing that he did not have enough stamina and speed to escape from the wolves, stopped and tried to fight off his opponents with a stone arrow. Unfortunately for him, the red danger level monsters were too strong to take any damage from such attacks. If no one was around, this guy would have been the first victim of the creatures that broke out. He was very lucky that Izumiya Makoto didn't chicken out and went straight to help. With a few precise shots of frosty spades, the girl pierced all the wolves attacking the student. She is one of the few students in this academy who can fight such powerful enemies. Approaching the frightened boy, Izumiya inquired if he could go, after which she advised him to seek help from his fellow students and move away from the gate. There are still students around that need to be evacuated. Also, the area is fairly close to the city. In that case, Izumiya is left with no other choice. To avoid unnecessary sacrifices, the girl will have to defeat the master of this gate. How she defeated those monsters and entered the gate was seen by Leon and his guide. Looking wistfully after her, the protagonist asked Luna what they needed to do to close this gate. Obviously, the answer to this question was to defeat the monster controlling this gate. It's commonly referred to as the boss. In that case, Leon suggested that his companion go there right away. However, Luna warned the guy that even though the power of the dark magic attribute was incredibly great, it consumed a lot of mana. Going there could be very dangerous, but the protagonist was not deterred by this. He explained to the messenger of the goddess that his current actions were not motivated by anyone else. Even so, he cannot ignore such a threat. He knows from his past life how devastating the consequences of his inaction in such situations can be. Well, well, Leon Sama is such a nice person, Luna said, looking at the boy with a smile. As they approached the edge of the house, the protagonist suggested we hurry up. After saying that, they, along with the goddess's messenger, jumped down. Meanwhile, Izumiya Makoto continued her battle with the monsters in the fire caves inside the gate. As I expected from creatures in the red category, the fights were not easy for her. And just as the girl was at her limit, a fiery serpent appeared behind her. Throwing a startled look at him, Izumiya shifted, but realized very quickly that she wouldn't have time to dodge. At the same moment, the dark magic attribute was activated, and the deadly claws pierced the huge monster to death. Staring perplexed at the dark energy emanating from the defeated serpent, Izumiya tried to understand what had just happened. Only after a while did it finally dawn on her who her savior was. Shifting her gaze to the figure standing in the depths of the cave, the girl recognized her classmate. Kurabane Ren, being an ordinary errand boy for a group of bullies, entered the red category gate and saved the head of the student council. Approaching the guy, a discouraged Izumiya asked if her eyes were deceiving her. As the boy jumped over the dead man's tail, the girl thanked him for saving her in such a dangerous situation. Kurabane in turn also said he was very glad she wasn't hurt. Taking advantage of the moment, Izumiya decided to ask the boy what kind of magic he had just used. Who the hell was he really? Turning away, the boy reminded the student council president that they had more important things to do right now. They should prioritize closing the gate. That's what she came here for, isn't it? Agreeing with her classmate, Izumiya said they should get moving. Walking along with the boy, the girl took another look at the defeated serpent. She had heard of a student named Kurabane Ren before. Even during the training battle at the academy, he was in last place. This was certainly a fair grade for this student, but in that case, why would he be able to use such powerful magic now? Deciding not to let it go to her head right now, Izumiya ran with the boy further down the dungeon inside the gate. Soon, the two of them were surrounded by monsters on all sides. Without stopping, the head of the student council used the water prison spell. After catching all the monsters in a huge hydrogen, the girl began to drag them to one point. The opponents were bogged down in a water prison with no way to breathe, and the students ran on. Leon couldn't help but marvel at such magic. But he couldn't expect anything else from the academy's best student. After a while, the ground before their feet parted, and an earthquake began. A tall, one-eyed rock golem crawled out from under a pile of stones. The creature immediately tried to attack Leon, but he dodged the blow without much trouble by jumping back. Then, putting his hand forward, the boy activated an attribute of dark magic. This time on his opponent, he used the Blind Edge ability. Already in the next second, the huge creature had once again turned into an ordinary pile of rocks. Watching this, Izumiya immediately realized that the guy had originally aimed at his opponent's weak point, his eye, thus finishing him off with a single shot. This is not only a credit to the unique magic he wields, he activates it quickly and uses it with extreme precision. He acts as a very experienced mage who has been fighting monsters for decades now. The two soon reached the location of the final dungeon boss. Preparing for a fierce battle, Kurobane asked his partner if she was ready. Hearing an affirmative answer, the boy and Izumiya crossed the boundary of the gate owner's chambers. Their current opponent turned out to be none other than a lava dragon. Even textbooks categorized this creature as an extremely dangerous monster. Only when she saw the majestic creature standing before her did Izumiya fall into a stupor. After bringing his partner to her senses, Kurobane asked her to be careful and explained that the lava dragon would constantly attack them with both fire and its tail, using it for range. No sooner had the two discussed the plan between them than the enemy had already begun to prepare the first attack. With its mouth wide open, the monster unleashed a powerful stream of plasma at the uninvited guests, melting everything in its path. Izumiya managed to dodge the enemy's first attack, but she didn't react immediately to the tail strike that her classmate had warned her about. By some miracle, she still managed to dodge again without getting hurt. Everything is happening exactly as Kuroban-kun told her. Taking a good position, the girl cast an ice spear and aimed it straight at the lava dragon's face. However, as it turned out, ice was not an effective weapon against this boss's magic. Normally, this attack would be extremely effective against the fire attribute, but the lava dragon's heat is so great that it completely neutralizes the ice advantage. All the while, Izumiya Makoto worked as the perfect decoy, drawing the boss's attention away from her to let her classmate get close. Standing in front of the monster's face, Kurobane used deadly claws on it. Realizing that he wouldn't be able to pull against such powerful magic, the dragon suddenly flapped its wings. At a tremendous speed soaring through the air, the monster began trying to fly as far away from this dangerous man as possible. In fact, Leon had no idea that this dragon still had the ability to fly. While the guy was wondering what they should do next, Izumiya ran up to him and asked if they were going to let him go just like that. Turning to Izumiya-san, Kurobane asked if she could use magic other than the water attribute. After receiving an affirmative answer, the boy asked the girl to try to slow the dragon down at least for a moment with wind magic. Not one to cross the guy, the student body president said she trusts him now more than anyone else. After saying those words, she activated the wind magic attribute. Putting her hands forward, Izumiya channeled a powerful stream of mana after the monster flying away. The air blast spell formed powerful wind currents around the flying creature, disrupting its rate of flight. The lava dragon, trying to shift, roared in despair. When the time came, the messenger of the goddess warned Leon-sama that the enemy had stopped moving. Taking a step forward, the guy activated an attribute of dark magic. Casting an abyss ruler spell, the boy began to envelop the lava dragon's body with hundreds of sinister butterflies. Waiting for the right moment, Leon snapped his fingers. The butterflies that clung to the monster from all sides suddenly began to glow brightly. Still trying to break free from the shackles of the wind currents, the blinded dragon roared even louder. The next second, there was a deafening explosion. Watching this incredible sight, Izumiya covered her eyes with her hands from the blinding light. When all the smoke from the explosion cleared, a picture of a defeated lava dragon appeared before the eyes of the two students. As usual, the jubilant Luna immediately began praising her beloved Leon-sama, remarking that she didn't expect anything else from him. "You did it," Izumiya Makoto said, walking up to the boy. Fixing her hair, the girl said with a smile that she had a lot of questions for him, but now she had to say that it had been an amazing battle. Punching his partner's knuckle, Kurobane agreed with her and remarked that it was only possible because of her. A while later, the gate disappeared, and the two students who defeated the boss were back in their world. Looking around, Leon said that they had accomplished their task, then remarked that the damage to the surrounding area seemed to be under control as well. The voice of the man who had called out to President Izumiya interrupted the boy's musings. A man in a suit standing outside his car asked the student body president to explain what her blatant disregard for his orders meant. That person turned out to be the director of the Sacred Imperial Academy, Shido Atsushi.
Pet the cat.